The increasing globalization of international markets creates tremendous logistical challenges. The tougher the competition, the more is expected of vehicles and their drivers. The utmost concentration is expected of anyone who is at the wheel of a vehicle. For trucks, sudden brake maneuvers and evasive steering maneuvers are part of a day's work. The stability and road safety of heavy trucks, tractors with semi-trailer, and buses are influenced by many internal and external factors. Drivers need the best state-of-the-art technology available. Mere seconds often make the difference between life and death. A fraction of a second is often all the time one has to deter dangerous accidents that could result in injuries or damages that can cost a considerable amount of money. Experiments in driving dynamics with Knorr-Bremse have shown that ESP, the Electronic Stability Program, can improve the safety of commercial vehicles by up to 40%. In Arjeplog in northern Sweden at the Knorr-Bremse testing center, the electronic stability program was tested in extremely low temperatures and under surface conditions with nearly no coefficient of friction. On these icy surfaces, evasive steering maneuvers are extremely challenging. Without ESP, the slightest swerve causes the driver to lose control over the vehicle. Let's look again. After extreme steering action, torsion is transferred to the axle at this point. Without ESP, the driver loses control of the vehicle. But with ESP, it's another story. Independently of the driver, the system stabilizes the vehicle's motion and reduces the danger of it veering out of control. Using built-in sensors, ESP recognizes vehicle instability the moment it occurs. Targeted application of brakes to individual wheels coupled with a reduction of the engine torque stabilizes the critical situation. You can clearly see the brakes being applied to the front left wheel. A second test, acceleration on snow and ice and circular course driving. This vehicle, ESP is not active, is accelerated to 55 kilometers per hour. The moment the lateral force of the tires is no longer able to compensate for the yaw rate, the vehicle goes out of control. The rear end of the vehicle veers out. Now, the same circular maneuver executed with ESP. ESP recognizes the danger long before the driver does. Before the situation gets critical, ESP takes over and reduces the engine torque, applying the brakes to individual wheels in order to stabilize the vehicle. The third test. The vehicle is taking a tight curve on an icy surface. Again, the first run is made without ESP. The tractor with semi-trailer understeers and swerves out of its lane. Now, the same situation, at the same initial speed, but with ESP. Again, before the situation gets critical, ESP intervenes to provide stability. Applying the brakes to individual wheels as needed achieves two things. The critical yaw moment is decreased, and the vehicle's speed is reduced. When a tractor with semi-trailer jackknives, serious accidents often result. ESP prevents extreme over and understeering, and the tractor with semi-trailer stays on its axis. In 2002, accidents on German roads involving trucks with a gross vehicle weight of more than 3.5 tons caused 1,196 fatal accidents and 6,897 accidents with serious injuries. A recent series of spectacular accidents involving overland buses threatens to ruin the reputation of the entire industry. Often, the reason for these accidents is given as the vehicle veered out of its lane. Many times, sleepy or unconcentrated drivers are responsible for these dramatic accidents. That's why testing the influence of ESP on coaches is of vital importance for Knorr-Bremse at its facility in Arjeplog. The advantages of ESP on coaches are also plain to see. After a sudden swerve and correct maneuver, the bus without ESP is impossible to keep under control. During its second circular course driving, the bus fares better. Before the situation gets critical, ESP ensures considerably more safety for the vehicle and its passengers. This is a typical case of understeering. Without ESP, the bus slides out of the curve. With ESP, the bus is able to take the curve safely. In practical terms, that means when the situation gets critical, ESP recognizes the danger the very instant it arises. In a thousandth of a second, the danger is averted by applying the brakes to individual wheels as required. The driver is able to retain control of the vehicle. In other words, ESP from Knorr-Bremse makes buses considerably safer, particularly when the bus threatens to roll over and in cases where the driver must apply the brakes suddenly to avoid an accident. In addition to tractors with semi-trailer and buses, a heavy 3-axle truck was tested. Here too, ESP provided added safety for vehicles of this type. In this example, an obstacle appears suddenly on an extremely icy surface. Without ESP, the driver wouldn't have a chance in a situation like this. Thanks to ESP, he can safely swerve to avoid the obstacle, return the vehicle to its lane, and continue on his way without incident. In the curve, the truck's rear axle begins to slide outwards at a speed of 55 kilometers per hour. It oversteers. With ESP, the vehicle remains on track. For truck drivers, negotiating curves on slick roads is a critical situation. The front wheels begin to skid. The vehicle understeers. In contrast, ESP immediately adjusts the speed appropriately by applying the brakes to specific areas as required. The impending accident can be avoided. A change of seasons. On roads with good traction, a truck without ESP quickly reaches the point where it threatens to roll over as soon as lateral acceleration exceeds physical limits. What this means for a typical driving situation? These trucks rolled over while trying to avoid running into stalled traffic. In this case, the liquid in the truck's transport container surged toward the outside of the curve when the vehicle swerved. The center of gravity was displaced and the driver lost control of the vehicle. The situation was reenacted at the testing facility. With ESP active, the truck trailer decelerates the instant the system recognizes the approaching danger. The electronic stability program is an extension of familiar driving dynamic systems, such as ABS and traction control. Numerous sensors provide a steady stream of data to the ESP system. The wheel's revolutions per minute are measured. The steering angle sensor indicates where the driver wants to go. Yaw rate and acceleration sensors make it possible to recognize impending instability before the situation gets critical. The successful introduction of the electronic brake system EBS laid the foundation for the development of ESP for commercial vehicles. It has recently also become available for vehicles equipped with ABS. Independently of the driver, the driving dynamics of the vehicle are monitored constantly. With this system, Knorr-Bremse has made another important contribution to increase traffic safety worldwide. Before it gets critical, ESP from Knorr-Bremse helps.